Glenn, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Roland. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you carving out some time right before the holidays to come and hang out for a little bit here. So why don't you kick us off here with what you guys do and who you guys are?
Yeah, we are Vikar Technologies. We've been around for 8 years, and we are a fintech that sells solutions to banks and credit unions. And we're really focused on that around lending and deposit generation and growth.
I was looking at your background, and you have a pretty solid pedigree of places that you've worked at, Microsoft, IBM. Obviously, you've worked in the bank space. What did you see when you kind of turned your gaze to the banking industry that made you think there's something to solve here? And I think I've got an idea on how to do it.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, my whole career and pretty much those of the partners too in Vikar Technology has always been within banking or in that fintech space. So, we became kind of experts at seeing it for years and years and years, like the same problems. And what we saw is, especially around digital transformation, is that a lot of banks were taking kind of like a point solution and automating pieces of a journey, right? Or even in the old days, thinking that you could put a PDF up on a website and call that digital transformation, right?
Get some chat bots and all of a sudden
chat bots and an electronic PDF and you're done, right? And that, it was like the same problem over and over again. It was kind of like, what they really were and kind of still are doing is trying to say, hey, let's put a nice front end. But if you open the curtain, it's still like hundreds of people on a stationary bike kind of doing the same thing over and over again, right? And we knew from our experiences at really solving complex problems, we just knew that we could provide that digital transformation from the financial institution's client all the way through every single department and employee that needs to work on it, and ultimately to update their core back-end systems. And we feel that's what differentiates us. Yeah.
Let me ask you a little bit about just like the day in the life for you at Vikar. So, you are the president of the organization. We're talking about transformation. Transformation, of course, is critically important to financial institutions, but it's also important for the players in the fintech space because you guys are really kind of leading the initiative. Most institutions aren't building, right? They're buying. What's the hardest part about your job, Glenn, as the CEO?
I think, let me say, my job is to keep Vikar focused on what makes us better, right? And what makes us who we are. And that permeates into all aspects of it, right? What's our messaging to our prospects, potential clients? Who are we hiring and who are we partnering with to make sure that we are still incorporating that and permeating everything that we do, for our clients? I mean, I feel that Vikar kind of is like a conductor, right? That's what our strength is. We orchestrate everything, right? So, and there's rooms for, that top end celloist or pianist to be out there, right? To really do their job. But it's my job and our job to focus all of those disparate parts together to make that wonderful symphony, that wonderful experience from there. So to me, it's leading, right? Understanding that, making sure everybody understands the vision, the mission, what we're doing from that standpoint. And then sometimes the hardest part is to get out of the way, right? We're hiring and we're partnering with great resources and people and that stuff. So my job is to really motivate them, to make them more like understand who we are and why we are who we are, and then let them go, right? And then really let them be that Vikar experience and let them promote that as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. Steve Jobs talked a lot about hiring people and letting them kind of lead the way and tell you what to do, sort of. I mean, he also, I'm sure was outside of the office door, banging on the door saying, I don't hear innovation happening in there.
Right. Right. And so the job is to clearly define the vision, right? For all of us, right? As well as our clients. And then to really let employees go and partners go and really kind of fulfill that vision, right? And then obviously you need to track that. You need to make sure, all of those things are happening. But really it's that hardest part, or the most important part maybe, is to really establish that groundwork and then, partner and hire the right resources that have that right motivation to go along with that ride with you.
Absolutely. When we first met, actually, I met Stephanie and I met Nancy when I was in a partnership role in Nebraska at the P3, the Fiserv Premier Conference, and that was actually how like our whole partnership and like this podcast episode even happened. And my time in that role, which it was so fun working in the partner space in fintech because there's so many new players, there's so much changing and happening in the space, and there's so much room for deep strategic work in the partnership space. I loved it. It was great. Do you guys have like a set of partners or any new partners that you recently started working with? I guess Q2 is probably
Absolutely.
a new one for you that you guys are probably pretty excited about.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. I mean, everything in this. So first, back up. I loved what you said too, right? Because you can hear the passion in what you're talking and what you were talking about meeting Stephanie and Nancy on your side, but also on our side, right? It is that passion, right? And that's the thing, my definition of success is all around that, is around the passion and is around, creating and delivering world-class experiences from that standpoint. And again, back to my point before, but that doesn't mean we everything for those experiences, right? It's around orchestration and those partnerships that you talked about, whether it's Q2, which is one of the later ones, looking at different fraud providers, looking at different document providers, all of those different things that we have here that will enable us, right, to build that world-class experience. That's what we do, right? So everything from there is with that lens of how do we find the right partners? How do we make sure that whatever we're doing in that partnership just enhances the overall customer and employee experiences with our solutions?
Yeah, and there's such a great opportunity it's like such a force multiplier to have fintech partnerships because you have a sales team, let's say I'm just making up a number, 4 people, and you partner with the right players, and all of a sudden, you're really kind of pseudo tapping into their sales team. They know your story as
Yeah.
well, right? Like they know kind of where you're strong and and as they're doing discovery with their own clients, the better they know Vicar, the people, the product, the easier it is for them to be like, oh, hey, you should, meet these guys just to see what's out there. So, yeah, no, I totally agree. Let me draw you out a little bit on, one piece of what you guys do in the lending origination space or the LOS. I mean, what is 30 years old at this point? What's left in the LOS space?
A few years ago, I mean, we thought the same thing, right? We were a bootstrapped company for a lot of our existence, right? So in the beginning, Vicar, what we started doing in the beginning was a lot of consultation work right from there, and then learning what the problems was from that. And in the loan origination space, you would be surprised, as mature as you might think it is, there's so many manual dropouts, right? Most of the implementations, most of that are not integrated into the core, right? So what you have is all of these manual dropouts that at the end of when they're doing the credit memo, they're printing out a booking sheet, handing it to the operations team who's doing more work on the loan because the core needs more information, and then manually retyping all of that stuff into the core. So that was probably one of the first things that we saw right away to say, hey, this yet again, it's not straight through from the end client all the way through the different departments into the banks. And then the other thing is like what I would say, both from the lending perspective as well as account opening, what we see too is most of our competitors out there kind of started with more simpler use cases first and started growing up into that phase. So, we see that they struggle a lot with like very complex organizations, a company owned by a company that's owned half by a human and then half by a company, and in turn all the way down from that standpoint. Who do you KYB? Who do you KYC in that sense
Mm,
from there?
death,
You know,
death by a thousand cuts for the
death by
operators.
1,000 cuts to the operators, right? And then what you're finding out too is that even, let's say, in a somewhat more complex loan scenario, right? So you could have a real estate developer that's looking to put up an office complex, right? And they're going to the bank and they want 3 loans. They want, a property mortgage from that standpoint. They want construction loan, and they want working capital for, to hire the people to actually to make the building. And they're going to be 3 distinct loans with different parameters. The property loan will be all up front, right? But then working capital and construction might be drawdowns over time, all with its different things. And what we find with our competitors is that they have to do that in three different applications, ultimately coming to three different document approvals going up to, let's say, the board or senior management. And nobody wants to look at three different documents to approve kind of one
Sure.
relationship from that
Sure.
standpoint. So they would inordinately try to get all of that information out of the origination system, put it in like a Word document or something to that effect to try to do everything behind the scenes to make that fit. So we still look at all of those things, and then there's plenty more to come. But even from that up until now, or, you know, T minus, 2 months, whatever that is, we still see that there is a lot of efficiencies, a lot of user experience, and a lot of gains in that space that's just still not being fulfilled yet.
Okay. So, Glenn, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is obviously AI specific to the lending origination space. What are you seeing AI being able to solve for very easily right now? And where are you seeing it not being able to wrap its arms around changing and improving things?
Yeah, so I mean, tactically, where we see the biggest fits right away from that standpoint is, around natural language models. So think OCR scans of documents, pulling information out of those documents for spreading, for underwriting to understand credit decisioning. From there, today, that's very manually entering in income statements, balance sheets, having AI filling out all of those forms, as well as, in these larger complex deals, there's a lot of art that goes into the credit approval document, right? There's a lot of things that go into, the feel of the customer and the feel of this. And we think that there's a lot of benefits for those types of chat GPT type of solutions as well that can really go in and help jumpstart those things from there. It's not replacing, but it's just kind of help to generate, to really get it to where you're putting effective work in front of the right person. We
So
think
true.
longer term, and it's not now. We think it will really help in auto decisioning, right? From that learning what
Like
kind of.
smaller, you think like smaller dollar consumer loans?
Yes. And small, medium business loans. I think it's going to start from there, right? Somebody who's looking for a business that's looking for a $75,000 line of credit, has a debt service coverage ratio of this and that. And then AI, can learn and adapt and say, this is what you guys have approved or you have approved all along, and kind of adapt to those models and going from there. And I think, that can scale up over time. I think it's the comfort of the banks to see how far do we trust it and how far do we let it go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Like one big danger for banks is as that auto decisioning becomes closer to a reality or very accessible for banks as well as fintechs, or is going to be the small business owner whose pizza oven just broke and they can just walk over to their POS from Square and boom, 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 they're approved. The money's in the account, right? They have visibility to cash flow, and then the bank is disintermediated. And,
Absolutely.
like, how do banks even combat that?
And they have to combat that with a change in culture, a change in attitude, and a change in technology. It's all three of those things, right? What you hear a lot of times in the bank is that we can't trust, and not even AI right now, but those quick decisions, right? But if you get to the right person at the bank, typically they'll find out that it's three or four or five different pieces of information, and that's that, right? And they really have to think about speed to market, efficiencies, gains, making that quick decision, and getting down to the brass tacks of what information is required to make that decision on. And I think, you think somebody like a new fintech competitor in that, they don't have those 40, 50 years of we've been doing it this way, and this way has worked for us in the past. They come in and look at, well, this is how we're doing it now and in the future. And I think the banks need to sometimes forget about, what got you here won't necessarily get you there.
So, great point. As the leader of Vikar, what are like the things that you are making sure your team isn't missing from a culture perspective, or things, that you are, really trying to be vigilant about?
I keep going back to the what got you here won't get you there. Experience is a great thing, but you also have to learn when to forget experiences, right? Something is always new coming, always new, right?
Sure.
everything can be better. Everything can go from there. I mean, when email came out, that replaced all of the typewriters from that standpoint, but you're still writing notes, you're still communicating, you're still doing that. But it's just really about always looking forward, right? And I like what you said, Roland. It is like, what is your goal and what are you looking to accomplish, right? So if we're going to a bank and we're talking about it and they want to grow their small medium business, then it really is looking at that and saying, well, margins are small on those loans. You need high volume and you got a lot of competitors that know how to do this right. How are you going to leapfrog them? Right. And forget about what you think you already know. It's how are you going to attack this almost as an outsider? To your point, Roland, right, what you were saying, just attack this now as a net new problem. If we were going to start all over again, how would we do this today?
Amen to that. Let me pull you out on one item here that we talked a little bit about, which is change management and fatigue. How do you work with institutions who may be dealing with fatigue like that, which I think is everybody? How do you help them do that without, driving them further into the fatigue blues?
Without making them jump off a building.
Yeah, right.
It's one of the hardest things that we have to do, right? Because you throw on top of that, there's been so many failed starts before, right? So it's not just how hard it is, the time and the dedication to do it, but in a lot of scenarios, it's not their first time, and they've done it before with promises of it's going to change, their world or whatever, and those promises never come to fruition. So a lot of times when we're starting from that, right? So we're going in there and we said, we tried to do that and it just doesn't work. So we're not going to do that again, right? At the core, Vikar, way we are, we really feel that we're consultants and problem solvers, right? That the technology helps us do that, helps us solve the problems. And so when we go in, we don't go in right away with, let's say, promises. I mean, we talk about our solutions in a sense, but we do is go in and say, where are you today? And what are you doing today? And, and what would tomorrow look like for you? And why would tomorrow be better? And we really start to talk to them so that the problems that they're coming up with, it's like we're doing the journey together, right? And we're establishing trust, early on, that it is different and that we are different and that we'll be successful in it. And yes, it's worth the journey, because we don't outsource our implementation. We feel that that's a core competency of ours. So we
Sure.
really, we lead it. We're there the whole time. We're there to hold everybody's hand through it. We're there to listen to them, to adapt our solutions to their needs while bringing in, industry standards from our side or best in class, solutions too. But really it comes down to trust, right? We really look at them and say, this is how it will impact you. Right. And then a lot of times those that were resistant to change in the beginning turn out to be our biggest champions at the end.
Absolutely, right. You get them, you kind of Sherpa them through the pass. They make it out the other end, and all the things that they heard during the sales cycle become true. And I think you really, if you can pull that off, you really do create an awesome partner for yourself.
And we have to, right? And that's, I mean, we feel like we're only as good as our last successful implementation, right? And we treat that with the utmost seriousness and respect, right?
I love that. What do you see as like some of the biggest growth opportunities for your existing clients? Like, is there kind of a chorus of things that they're all trying to do? Like, are you noticing a trend among your guys' client base? Like, what are they kind of all asking for?
What they really are looking for is holistic solutions, right? They are looking for that across the board. So, in loan origination, it's from the end client all the way through, through underwriting, through all of the origination pieces of that, all the way through closing, all the way through onboarding into the core. And then later on doing covenant tracking, right? Having those risk reviews and making sure that they're doing that app on the other side too. And then on the, and doing that for complicated loans effectively, and then simple loans or SMB loans very efficiently and more straight through. And then on the account opening side, again, being able to deal with complex organizations, being able to automate all of that stuff with a great experience where there's no manual dropouts, with compliance in there. And what you see is we typically start with one solution, right, with our clients, but then they grow across the board because they're saying, well, wait a minute, 90% of our new customers are coming in from commercial loans. Right. So if we had one platform that could originate, underwrite, board the loan, do the KYC, KYB, all of that stuff, and then open up a deposit account and offer them treasury management services, now we're talking, right? And we're
That's a
and we see
strong offering.
yeah, that's a strong offering to keep that same consistent experience all within kind of one application and then just routing it to wherever it needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like, basically what you're talking about is origination and, originating loans, originating deposits, right? Originating that relationship with the institution. I feel like in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of these verticals are going to collapse and converge under that umbrella, which is, it's the beginning of the relationship with the customer. And to have that kind of flavor be unified, there's value in that and having that be consistent.
Yeah, and umbrella services with, more effective pricing, more effective, and think about the use case, right? Think about, somebody, like me, the owner of Vikar Technologies in a sense, right? For example, let's say I need a line of credit loan for 250,000 and I, get a great rate, but everything with that experience. And then in that experience, they're saying, hey, we can offer you this, for your deposit accounts and checking, savings, whatever, money markets, all of that stuff. And also we can bundle in a lot of treasury management services, international wires, and you will get one signature package that you just go click, 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 and it's done. And it's
Love
not
that.
like sitting in an office for 5 hours, doing that, printing that, or somebody at your house drinking your coffee. Everything's that. Now, if you think about that, I mean, we've all experienced the frustrations, like kind of car dealerships and banks to me are very similar about how long that buying experience is, right? And the frustrations and the pain points from that standpoint, right?
Nightmare, absolute nightmare.
Nightmare,
Yeah.
right? And you think about, I mean, the car dealership that can get me out of there, or I never have to go until I pick up the car and drive it home. The same thing with the banks, right? Like I mean, I could just, I want to talk to a banker about what's the best use of my money and how can we do things more effectively. But, not sitting there going, okay, now I need my articles of incorporation and my driver's license. And that's like, I can do that from home. I can, all of those things in that one effective experience. I think we're still in that sense that the world's your oyster if you can do that.
Absolutely. Like I don't want to get political here, but we recently bought a Tesla and
So
I still okay, well then you can get on board with this. I still cannot believe the experience of pulling up, showing them our ID, walking us to our car, and then we drove away. Like there was no
yeah,
experience where they take you in the back room and they're like, "Oh, by the way, that car we just sold you, it's a complete piece of junk. It's going to blow up as soon as you pull off the lot. You need to buy this insurance." I feel like the bank,
and
like there's a lot to learn from that.
and even and to that experience for the banks to learn from how great that experience is. And think about this, right? Tesla authenticates you, right? They do, right? You take a picture of your driver's license, you do the scan of your face and all of that stuff. But then also they cross sell you, right? In certain states, you can finance the Tesla or lease it right on the app. You can also get car insurance right from the app. Right. So now it's not just the acquisition of the car, but it's either the financing or the leasing of it, as well as the insurance. And now they can upsell you on all of these products because everything is happening at the same time, all in one device and very simple. And I think that's the attitude all across the board. Amazon did that with retail stores, right? Tesla's doing that with, dealerships. I think that's the stuff that everybody needs to be thinking more and more and more about, how do we revolutionize what we're doing to make that experience just so much better tomorrow?
Absolutely. Like, how can we make this account origination as easy as buying concert tickets, right? I feel like that's such a great kind of North Star for us all to head towards. The truth is, though, is that the compliance component and the KYC really throws a wrench in that whole thing. But I mean, that just kind of is what it is. Like until that changes, I think we're kind of limited, but there's still a lot of room, right, to speed things up, tighten them up. The more consumer experience related you can make this whole thing, the better.
Definitely. And the thing is, I know this as being a fintech and being in the financial services, my whole kind of career, you can work with compliance, right? You just have to have compliance in your core, right? You just need to understand what that is, right? And we integrate with all the providers. We got the background checks. We got all of that stuff, fraud detection, everything from there, come up with a risk score. It's all hidden, from the end client, right? From that standpoint, anything trips it up can be a fast fail, but anything that doesn't, it goes straight through. And then marrying it together to the best of your ability, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do while still being compliant to the regulations.
How do you guys do anything to help your clients prepare for the auditor experience?
So right now, absolutely. We have point in time documents. We have point in time decision making, why the decision was made with all of the clear kind of backup that's needed for the auditors to come in, right? So from that operational efficiency from there and doing that it's really kind of like it's there, it's 100%, it's guaranteed every single time. You will not fail an audit with lack of evidence or lack of documentation from that standpoint. So right there, we're doing that. And then we're looking at different things right now about incorporating auditors right into our platform, right? Where they could have their own
Whoa.
logins. Yeah. Not there yet,
Okay.
but just have
I'm
their,
sure that I believe it's true, right? Being friends with the auditors is obviously good, but I'm sure that there's some people who think that's kind of letting the wolf in the hen house a little bit.
and no, you're right, but it's funny. The reason why we're looking at this and working on it is because our clients are asking for it. They're like, it's
There you
such an
go.
inordinate amount of time
Sure.
that we have to go through to prepare the information for them. You already have the information. If we could make it easy for them to come in and just be able to do that, then it's a big efficiency and time save for.
How do you balance? So in my experience, I've seen the customer base be like a superpower to the product roadmap. How do you balance what you guys want to do and what your clients are asking for from a product perspective?
A lot of times it's educating too and reminding the banks, right? So I think there's a misnomer that customer experience is like a great website and ease of use to get them through an application, right?
Sure.
And that's part of it. It's a significant part of it, right? It's very important to get that piece right so you don't have dropouts in doing that. But everything that you can do to elevate your employee experience all along the way, right? And make that experience great, in turn will make your customer experiences even better. It will shorten the process. They will understand the first time what documents they need to have. From there, there's no guesswork, there's no back and forth, there's none of this stuff. So when we do that, everything is about how do we make everything better, right? From the operations team in the back to those that need to prepare for the auditors, to those that are on the front end getting things from the customer, to those that are responsible for new customer acquisition from there. And it really is that holistic approach, because if you can solve for all of that, I feel like you're turning all of your employees much more into customer success managers than in somebody that just understands a checklist and tries their best to get the right information and documentation they need.
Sure. Like their knowledge and ability to help you is in like this extremely tight silo, and kind of that's it.
Yeah, right. And that's it. Whereas you could have them more focused on asking the right questions, on more focus. One of our clients said that one of the biggest benefits that they saw was that they no longer needed to have their branch people be experts in the technology to onboard a client, but that they could train them to be customer success managers and ask the right questions. What are you looking to do? What are you looking to solve for? All of those things. And I think that's huge. And to get back to your point, it's a roundabout way of answering your question. And I get that, but that's what drives what we're going to do, right? All of those things, it drives our philosophy around the product, right? Around that orchestration, around that experience. Does this really enhance the experience? Does this really drive, what we want to do forward? Right. And that could be from a user experience, from efficiency, from automation, from, audit completeness. I think it all revolves around.
Glenn, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people go to learn about what Vikar's doing and where you guys are showing up in 2026.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, vikartech.com is our website, right? LinkedIn, Vikar Technologies, Inc. We will be at a bunch of conferences, whether it's AOBA, acquired or be acquired, right? So we'll be in a bunch of different conferences come the conference season from there. So check us out at our booths and come visit us on LinkedIn and our website and reach out, and we'd love to start a conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Glenn. Hey, thanks for being here. If you or someone else you know would like to explore coming on the show, fill out a contact form at propagatefintech.com and we can explore some content ideas with you. Also, we are an end-to-end marketing and PR firm only supporting the bank industry. So if you would like to explore going deeper with Propagate, again, feel free to reach out to us and we can explore whatever that you are working on. See you on the next one.